How do you file 41 consumer bankruptcy cases in a month without an assistant? Sounds most likely you're thinking impossible. It's not. Matthew Frey, Michigan, California, located in Saginaw, Michigan, bankruptcy attorney with 720 System Strategies since 2017. I'll never forget, Matthew. It was January, right before COVID, 2020. And you filed 41 cases in 1 month by yourself.
Yes.
Now, these people listening are going to be like, it's impossible. Like, I mean, I have bankruptcy attorneys that have a paralegal to help them with 10 cases a month, right?
I feel I can get my work done on the bankruptcy side of things if I work 2.5 to 3 hours a day. Now that's not intake calls. That's if I'm just doing actual work.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less than that.
So how do you file? I mean, let's unpack this for a second, right? So first of all, you don't have an assistant, you don't have a paralegal. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, the issue I have with that is you're going to have a loss in productivity every time you're simply transferring information from yourself to somebody else and themselves to you. You've got emails that go back and forth, even if you're in the same, room essentially. And the more hands that touch something, the less that gets done on a lot of occasions. When you're trying to file or have a volume practice where it's just you're going to develop a system that works. And if you don't stick with the system, it's never going to work. And when you introduce other people to it, it's going to disrupt your system. And it's always the hard part is when you figure out where your cap is. I can only do so much for so long by myself. But when you get a system, and then the biggest thing that I found, regardless of how many cases you file, whether it's 10, 15, 20, 30, 41 cases in a month, the biggest thing is not letting yourself feel like you've got so much to do.
Okay.
If you let the feeling get to you, it's much. I remember when I first started doing 20 cases a month with you, Phil, back in 2017. I was working like 13 hours a day. Like I wasn't ready for the volume, and I had stuff everywhere. Nothing was organized. I had no clue what I was doing, and it just took like 80 hours a week. And people are on the listen to this, I'll probably be like, yeah, that sounds about right. File 20 cases, it's gonna be right. But when you really boil down a bankruptcy process, and my process is very straightforward and it works for me, not gonna work for everybody. You're gonna find that you just have a lot more time to do like client contact, client emails, the actual casework itself. I tell people there's just days of the week it's gonna be easier. And there's gonna be times of the day that it's easier. And that's usually when the phone's not ringing.
So Matthew, let's go through your process.
Yeah.
Because this is pretty unique, right?
Yep.
So first of all, you talk to all your debtors on the phone. You don't have any.
I do every intake 100% myself.
And the way you do it with our lead follow-up, we do all your lead follow-up.
Yes.
We do your lead generation, right?
Yep.
We set appointments on your calendar, but we don't even actually connect the calendar because you don't really have a calendar to connect. So if it shows up,
I got a good old paper right here, Phil.
Okay, so it shows up, you get an email and it says you're going to talk. I mean, this is comical for me because I was like, wait, I can't connect your calendar. So someone sets an appointment. So what we're doing is we're setting an appointment for a set period of time that you say, hey, set appointments during this block.
Right.
And if someone sets it for 3 o'clock and another person sets it for 3 o'clock, you're just getting emails and saying, hey, 3 o'clock, whatever it is. Right.
Right.
And so that's the first thing. You don't get in your head about double book or triple book. Right.
Nope.
And what's your thought on that?
Yeah. My thought process is, and we still, a lot of people, especially now, everything is marked as a spam call. So the biggest thing that I do now, and I really try and condition myself almost daily, is regardless of the day that I'm having, whether it's a good day, somebody gave me an adversary proceeding or an audit or something like that, you call the client. If you don't get the client, you just the language I think that you use is very important. You tell them this is so-and-so. I'm calling for an appointment that you scheduled for today at 3 o'clock. You booked the appointment yesterday to ask some questions about bankruptcy. When you're ready to call me, here's the number. Again, call me back. And I that leads to a lot of callbacks.
Mhm.
But if they don't call back, I've got the confidence that they're in your marketing sequence, Phil,
Right.
and I'll get an email response. I get these every week. And I look at the bottom of the email. First thing I do when I see the response
Mm.
to one of your emails, I look at the parentheses date.
Yeah, right.
I want to know how long they've been looking at your email, because
Yeah,
there's
right.
a whole bunch that really work and other ones I never get a response to.
Yeah.
And so then I call a person, like the one that was like, a 2-year client or a 1.5-year client. I can always tell where they're at because of that sequence. But, you know, my process is, if we can do the intake, I do try and limit it. Not all clients are as quick, as easy, but I tell people again, when you look at your process, what are you trying to convey? Again, you're trying to make a connection, and everybody's connection is going to be different. Everyone's is going to be different. So I do cases statewide. When I get a client down by Detroit, I tell them, I used to live down there. I grew up down there. Immediate connection.
Right.
If I get most of our clients up, hey, I've been through this process 16 years ago myself, worked out great for me, but it's not for everybody. So immediately a client's going to hear, hey, this person's been through what I've been through, number one. But number two, if they don't think it's going to be for me, I'm not going to get sold up the river.
Yeah, right.
And I tell them, I said, if you don't file, I can want you to be debt free.
So you're building the connection on that first.
We build the connection on that. And then I ask them the simple questions. Who do you owe and how much do you owe? Give me some numbers, folks.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to give you words. They say, hey, I work in numbers. I don't work in words.
Yeah, right.
And so we get that. And then I give them the old spiel. I don't make the rules. I just tell you what they are. You don't have to like them. If you don't like the rules, don't play the game. And then I get their income. I get their debts. I get where they live, because we do cases statewide. So that's always important. Do you rent? Do you own? If they rent, real easy. You can dump all the house questions, right? If they own, we immediately, because of the home equity problems that we have in some states here, we immediately go into, well, I know you don't want to sell. I'm not asking you to sell. But for our purposes, I can't give you the advice if I don't know what your home is worth. Can you give me an idea? And people say, well, I don't know. I say, well, is it worth $1 million? That's not worth $1 million. So you have some idea, right?
Yeah.
How much do you owe on it? And people want.
How long does that intake take?
The average intake, I would say, is between 4.5, 8.5 minutes.
Okay. So what would you say to someone who says, you got to bond with them? You got to bond. I need a 30-minute intake. I need 30 minutes with my people.
They happen. I mean, if I get someone where we're just kind of, talking away, it happens. We feel good. But I would tell you, I don't think that person's any more likely to file than someone I talked to for 4 minutes. Because the filing decision, when you're a bankruptcy debtor, I don't think is whether or not you like the person. That may depend on whether you pay them or not. But whether you file or not comes down to, is your debt causing you enough pain to where it's giving you a real problem that you need to solve, and this is the person I trust to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And if I know that person's been there and they're not going to sell me a nonsense solution, I don't need to talk to them for 20 minutes. I need to know they know I got a problem, they can solve the problem, and I trust them. And then at that point, they've got to be ready to go forward. So how do we get to 40 cases from that? Is we got a whole lot of Phil generated ads and leads.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So let me go back a little bit on this process. So one, you have them set. You talk to every lead.
Every lead. It's the
You
attorney.
give them whatever it takes. The attorney. Okay. When you give them a number, when they don't show up, because 50% of the people don't show up,
Right.
you give them your cell number.
I give them my office and my cell.
Office and your cell, and you basically say, "Call me when you're ready." So it's basically
you're ready.
like, I'm not chasing you. Call me when you're ready, because they got to go through their own development and ripening process.
Right.
You talk to them for between 4 and 8 minutes, or sometimes 30, depending on the person, right?
Yeah.
And then when they call you up and say, "I'm ready," right?
Yep.
How's that process work? You take a debit card right there.
Nope.
No.
So that's probably where my process is the weakest, and I'll admit that. So my process is, because I'm in most cases a zero down practitioner.
Uh-huh.
I tell them, okay, great, you're ready to go. Go back to the email I probably already sent you, and if not, I'll send it again. which is, my tagline says 4 easy steps to get rid of the debt through bankruptcy. I said, step number one, get me those documents. You got to give me the license, the social card, the tax returns, the bank statements, the pay stubs. If you have any problems, you call me, you email me, you tell me what the problem is. I will help you find the documents. Okay.
Mhm.
Most times I can walk people through that in a 2 sentence email or 30-second phone conversation, whatever the case is.
Okay.
Some people bring me their phones and we do it in the office. Most people, we are able to walk them through the process there. And then we get the documents, tell them, okay, get the counseling course done. And then you tell me when you've got 30 minutes where I can do my Q&A. I don't bombard people with forms. I don't give them a big old packet they got to fill out. I try to remove all the obstacles.
No unsupervised forms at all. You're filling out the forms in real time.
In real time, because clients will use every excuse to not do it.
I was in a bankruptcy attorney's office one time, and I was meeting with the bankruptcy attorney, and one of our leads showed up, right?
Yeah.
And then I forget how I knew it was our lead, but like they must have said, "Hey, this is one of your clients or whatever." I didn't know the lady at all. And she came in and, whatever, 30 minutes later, I'm leaving and the lady's down there filling out like a multiple page form. And she's like halfway through the first line. It's like 9
Yeah.
font. And I was like, Mark, can you help this lady? So,
Right.
and he literally took the form. He was like, "Oh, sure. Are you self-employed? Nope. Scratch. Half the form's gone." Like
Right.
he went through the whole thing and like it was nothing. And I was like, Mark, no unsupervised forms. And I realize it's hard for people to hear that. You're like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want, they have to do the work. This is what I hear. I hear people say, no, the client has to show intent. I understand, but it's hard. They don't think like us. They don't think like us.
No.
And debtors will bury their head in the sand. They're going to look at this and be like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it in great intent
Right.
tomorrow. It's like cleaning out your garage. When was the last time you said you're someone to clean out my garage?
Right.
You have the greatest intent.
Yep.
But you don't do it. Okay. So they say, I'm ready for 30 minutes. You do the 30 minutes, you do the form with them on the phone.
Yep.
And then what's the next step?
Yep. Then I fill out all the schedules, the petitions, whatever we need to do. And again, that's going to be you do it, assistant does it, whoever. I do it all myself. Okay. And then you print them off. They sign them either electronically or in person. And then boom, you explain the process, make sure they don't have any questions, and you file the case.
Yeah.
So,
But
and again, if you've eliminated some of those things, it makes it very simple for the client. They're not trying to understand the whole process and things like that. They really only have a few basic concerns.
Right.
And if you can convey to them that, hey, I'm watching out for you, I'm not going to file something that I don't think is going to benefit you, and they trust you on that. Because
Right.
in my case, it's like, well, he's been there. He knows what it's like to have debt you can't pay. Then they're like, okay, I trust you with my finances.
Yeah.
Would you go to a financial planner who says, I'm a $200,000 negative on trades, but I really think you got to buy this stock? And it's like, no, it's not there. But you want someone who understands, really just where you're at. And I think a lot of it is image too. Like I wear the hoodie now, and this unless I'm in a court hearing, this is what I wear.
They like it. The debtor like
my clients.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the debtor they like the fact that you're not some stuffy attorney. You're probably the first attorney they've ever spoken to in your life. They can relate to you. You're telling them you've already gone through bankruptcy yourself 16 years ago. Like you're what? Yeah. I mean, it matters. It matters.
And I think if they feel you're on their level, they're infinitely more likely. It's where I've had people call me and they say, well, I called so-and-so. And the first question they ask is, why don't you pay your bills?
Yeah.
And they said, immediately I was turned off by that question.
Of
And
course.
it's like,
Come on. That's a mercy. One thing I also want to bring up about you, because I know you so well. I mean, we've worked together since 2017, and you're an early adopter. I mean, you really are. And one of the things about you, you'll try things.
I'll try anything.
You try it. I mean, you try it. I mean, we talked about today's trying something before we started recording.
Right.
But like when we started talking, we were working together from 2017 to 2020. And 2020, when COVID hit and everyone was home, I was like, you know what? Everyone's on their phone. Like, we have got to figure out this Facebook thing. Right.
Yeah.
And this was like everyone had said, oh, Facebook ads don't work, Facebook ads don't work. But what the concept we came up with was advertise a learn more. Like, it's not set an appointment. Learn more. Then we put them into our email and text drip sequence. Back then, actually, we only had email. We added text. And I remember one time, I don't know how long it was in the future, but we would set consistent numbers for you for appointments where it would show up on your calendar. And you called me one time, you were like, "Boy, something's working with the ads." I was like, "Oh, really?" And you're like, "Yeah, like the appointments have doubled." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, really?" And I looked back and the ads were performing the same. The only difference was we were following up with, thousands of leads. Like, I
Right.
forget what it was, 1,000 or 2,000 leads that we've generated over time. And then those people get to the point where they're ripe and they're ready to file because they're learning, "Oh my gosh, this guy bought a home. This guy bought a car." Like, their life's not over. And that's the thing about you, Matthew. You play the long game and you're very systematized. Like, you really, hey, this is it. And you don't get caught up in calling people over and over and over and over because that takes a lot of time.
It does take a lot of time.
There's no way you could file 41 cases in a month without an assistant if you were following up with all your leads. I
Where are
mean,
you coming, Phil? You take that off my shoulder.
well, good. Well, I love working with you. Is there anything else you'd say in terms of efficiency for other attorneys, other sole proprietors? I mean, or people who maybe they have one paralegal and they feel they got to add another one. Well, great. What can I do? What can I do from an efficiency perspective to keep money in my pocket? Because the problem is, you hire another paralegal, that's expensive.
Yeah.
So what would anything come to mind?
Well, I mean, when I go back to it again, I think 99% of it is mindset because when I had those months where I filed in December, I filed 27, I filed like 41 in January, and then like 39 in February the month after. And you break that down into, well, that's about one, not even 1.5 cases a day. Okay. Calendar days. Business days, okay, let's say it's 2. You got 20 business days a week. If you can say, well, I can do this morning and I can do this case this afternoon,
Mhm.
and it takes me this long to do a case, it really starts to say, well, I could have done 80 cases, if I'm working at it. And a lot of that is, do the work. Again, don't procrastinate. When you're doing 40 cases, you can't procrastinate. You can't put everything off last minute. You've simply got to become that little robot of, okay, this case I have to do this, and this case I have to do that.
Yeah.
And then, try to organize as you're doing it, and then just keep that mentality of there really is only 45 minutes, hour and a half on this file, and then I can put it down. I think as attorneys, we have this tendency to just let stuff build up.
Yeah.
I don't send the preference letter or demand letter till the 341 or a month after. I don't follow up on that. And it's like, start putting it in your calendar or your paper or wherever you're going to put it. We'll put the notes down, get the draft letter, get it out, check a box, make sure that you've got, some system to track the debtor education courses.
Yeah.
And what I like to do now is, I got, I have a file on my desk. When I'm done, I put it off my desk. And then once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, I just go those files that are in that pile and I just run through and make sure, where's everybody at that's in this pile? Is the discharge coming up? Is the counseling course done? Is the 341 coming up? Are the documents all in? Shoot the email over to the client for the documents. And again, if you let yourself get sidetracked or worried about stuff, then yeah, you're going to run out of time. And that's the problem is once you run out of time on case number 1, it's going to spiral to case number 10, and then it's 11 through 14,
Too much.
and then all of a sudden you look like a crazy person, and you're trying to, it just backlogs you. But it's one of those things where, again, just put yourself in. what is the real time on a case when you're prepping a case? Now, I'm not saying follow up emails and calls, that's a lot of work, but when you're prepping those cases, if you say this is an hour and you put yourself in that time set,
Mhm.
you can do the work. It's only if you tell yourself you can't do it that you panic, you go hire a bunch of people, and then you got to find something for them to do if the next month stinks.
Well, and the bankruptcy industry, the way it was 10 years ago, is not what it is today. I
No.
mean, we have automation. You don't even touch your leads. You don't even like follow up with your leads. All they do
Right.
is show up on your calendar because of automation. I mean, bankruptcy practice management software, so much more efficient now than where it was 10 or 15 years ago. And it's going to get better. And we must lean into these automations. And Matthew, congratulations. I mean, I know Michigan has not recovered the same way, especially with the housing exemptions, but when they do, I know your numbers are going to be big. I mean, you're unique, safe
Well,
least.
I'm hoping to do 50 someday, Phil, and then we can update the video.
We're going to do it. Okay, Matthew Frey, MatthewFreyLaw.com in Michigan. If you have a client that needs him, you can reach out to him. He's more than willing to. He's very approachable, as you can tell, sharing his knowledge. My name is Philip Tirone with 720 System Strategies. We help bankruptcy attorneys become more efficient and more profitable with automation and marketing. You can go to 720systemstrategies.com and take a look at what we offer. We'd love to talk to you. Matthew, thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil.